We were basically doomed on the day we opened. There was a call between Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase Bank, and Alan Schwartz, CEO of Bear Stearns, big investment bank. They end up having to infuse billions of dollars into Bear Stearns just to keep them afloat. I'm in a 32 Ford Highboy Roadster, no convertible top, no seatbelts. I'm driving down the highway. Right as I pull in the parking lot, the rear end locks up. I can't move the car at all. This guy literally almost killed me. You do know what a Tucker is, right? Yes, sir, I do. Well, I have the only convertible. The bullshit meter goes to a level 100 out of 10. I'm about to talk about people who committed to buy the car who then died. The Prince of Abu Dhabi, $7.5 million in restoration, a multi-million-dollar deal on the car. I turned on the news and it's Prince of Abu Dhabi in glider crash. So they found the instructor alive, but the prince was dead. Get your keys and move your fucking car right now. Are you drunk? No, I'm not drunk. Get your keys and move your car. I'm serious, man. We're about to get hit by a bad storm. I'm going to get my keys if I have to come in there and physically take them. That car is my life. I'm running all the way back up, finally get the last window rolled up, and I get yanked away from the car by a firefighter or a paramedic, and I'm not even 50 feet away from the car when the roof of the tent rips off. It bids up to $1.4 million, which is below the reserve price. I don't accept it. It no sales. Tell me that the phones were working when my car was on the block, please. Unfortunately, I'm sorry they weren't. Really appreciate the offer, but I've got to go. I had to present the offer to the bank. Just want to let you know, this guy called on Saturday night. He offered a mobile home park in Wyoming. I just want to let you know that we're not going to take the offer. They make us spend $3,500 on an appraisal. Sure enough, it appraises at an amount that's greater than the value of the Tucker Convertible. From this multi-million-dollar car, we get a multi-million-dollar piece of property. And on that multi-million-dollar piece of property, this loan shark is willing to loan us a relatively small portion of its value. I have to fly out to go to a real estate closing to sell the only Tucker Convertible in the world.
Wow.
As I'm sure you can already tell, the Tucker Convertible and I's lives have been eventful to say the least. There were and still are lots of naysayers, but please make sure to watch this from start to finish and form your own opinion. I will mention that, per official Tucker archives, the Tucker Convertible was definitely planned by the Tucker Corporation, and this car, confirmed experimental serial number 1057, was with Chief Stylist Alex Tremulous in the Tucker Experimental Department when the factory closed. Thanks to the countless people who have pushed me to finally publicly tell my side of the story. Thanks also to the naysayers, as you've always pushed me to fight even harder. To protect individuals' privacy, maintain security, and keep the story streamlined, some names, details, and locations have been changed. Any resemblance to other persons, living or dead, or to other events or places is purely coincidental where such changes have been made. Before we start, we'd be very grateful if you'd like, subscribe, and share our episodes, as we're here to help as many people as possible via shared no surrender stories, and we'll get there much faster with your continued support. Thank you. This episode is brought to you by our partners over at Don't Trade It In. It's the best and fastest way to get top dollar for your car from the comfort of your home. Please visit don'ttradeitin.com today. All right, here we are. This is going to be episode 11, and we obviously did episode 0 with you interviewing me. And we are back with another special episode that is kind of out of order based on some activity we've seen online lately. As the viewers can see and the listeners are going to hear, we've got a lot of Tucker memorabilia here, including the New York Times article when we were featured in the New York Times back in the day for the Tucker Convertible. And I guess to get a little bit more specific, the car is very polarizing for those who don't know. The Tucker Convertible is a factory experimental vehicle that was never finished, and there's some controversy surrounding it. There always has been, or at least for my lifetime. The guy that I got it from bought it in 1981, which is the year I was born. So this car has a lot of history, and I've never really told the story of like my full story of the car. And it's clear at this point, based on the fact that there's still a lot of going back and forth online about the car that I've stayed out of for the last, I don't even know how many years, that it's time for the car to come full circle. And I'm going to be presenting a lot of cool information today that I haven't really shared, at least all at once, and some information I've never shared before at all. So with all that being said, I've got my beautiful wife, Andrea, back to interview me again for episode 11. And I guess the last thing I'll say before we officially start here is that Tucker is a lot like Tesla, or was a lot like Tesla is today. Most people have never heard of Tucker. That's because they only produced enough cars or parts to produce between 50 and 58 cars. Most of those cars, or many of those cars, were not finished before the factory closed because back in the late 40s, the big three auto manufacturers here in the United States, Chevrolet, Ford, and Chrysler, were pretty intimidated by all the progress that Preston Tucker was making and had him tied up in court, drained him of all of his money, and basically put him out of business. With all that being said, Mr. Tucker himself was featured in a movie called Tucker, the Man in His Dream, and he was played by Jeff Bridges. It's a great movie that I highly recommend everyone watch to get an idea of everything Tucker went through. But one thing that everyone has seen, at least in the United States, that has watched any war movies, is Tucker turrets were the little glass bubbles on the bottom of the warplanes that kind of spun around and the machine gunners were inside of them. So Tucker, after World War II was over, got into the American auto manufacturing scene because he was totally unimpressed with the, I guess you could say, state of achievement or advancement with American cars. He knew that there was a lot left to be innovated, and he did really cool stuff like put a horizontally imposed flat six helicopter engine into the back of the car and set these cars up. So instead of having loaner vehicles at a service department, you would have loaner drivetrains. So you would go in, and in 15 minutes, you don't even get out of your car. The plan was for the customers or owners to not get out of their cars. They would be lifted up on a lift. They would pull the drivetrain out, which is where most of the problems, or at least many of the problems, occur with most vehicles. Put a loaner drivetrain in, and off you go. Semi-automatic transmissions, a lot of safety technology that was ahead of its time. The third headlight, which we'll include in some B-roll, that actually swiveled when you turned the steering wheel. So anyways, that's like why Tucker was so popular back in the day. And that, along with the movie, is why Tucker still brings so much interest even today. So with all that being said, we're ready to officially kick it off.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me now as your host for the second time. For those who have not listened to episode 0, I interviewed Justin, as he said, on his story. He's always had the craziest stories that I do think that people should know about, just because of how much I have personally learned, and I know a lot of family members and friends have learned from you. One of the craziest stories, it is the Tucker Convertible that you were a part of. And ultimately, it was one of your highlights of your career. And so the fact that we continue to see, as you said, either news or blog posts or Facebook posts about this car, and we get excited about it, and then we go see those posts and all the hundreds of comments that they have, and they bring all the attention, and then reading those comments are 50% amazing and 50% entirely polarizing. I think as time goes by and as we continue to see those posts, it's only fair for you to tell your side of the story. So whoever's interested at least can read everything that's online, listen to your story from the guy who restored the car, and really just draw their own conclusions. So with that, all that being said, I want to know more about Benchmark Classics, your first dealership, and go on the Tucker story, which is insane.
All right. Well, yeah. If you're watching this episode, you'll be able to see probably in the kind of the center shot, we've got a giant Benchmark Classics logo on the table that we're sitting at today. This table was also in my office at Benchmark Classics. And there's other, obviously, cues, the article that's behind us that was written about us when I owned Benchmark Classics, along with some partners. And yeah, that's where the story begins. So I was actually in business school and had plans to graduate as a triple major with degrees in real estate development, which is it's called urban land economics. So real estate development and finance is kind of all one degree. And then marketing and accounting were two other degrees that I was planning on graduating with. But I really couldn't find anything in business school that I was as passionate about as cars. And the classic car market was white hot in 2007 or so. And we, I'll add this in real quick. It's important to know my dad is he's not a car guy, as in like he's in the car business or has ever officially worked in the car business, but he has the same car bug that I have. So we were on the hunt for a 1967 Corvette that had the biggest engine with the highest horsepower. And we were looking, and I mean, it can take years to find the right car. And sure enough, we find this car that has really low miles, has, that correct engine. It's a relatively desirable color combination. And due to the fact that the market was so hot, when these cars would hit the market, you had to pounce on them really quick. So I think I found the car. Can't remember, might have been him. But anyways, we find it online. We call immediately and we confirm that it was what we believed it was. We negotiate a deal, and the gentleman who owned the dealership that was selling the car obviously knew what he was doing. Like, he had millions of dollars worth of inventory. And the more I talked to the guy, he was a serial entrepreneur. And I was like, this is like basically like a dream job. And I haven't found my dream job yet because one of my goals when I was younger, as you know, if you watch episode 0, was to hopefully play football in the NFL or at least college. And injuries and other things prevented me from doing that. So the more I talked to this guy, we put this deal together, and it was an expensive car, and he included enclosed transport in the price. And we had the impression the car would show up pretty quick. Well, sure enough, a couple days go by, the car doesn't show up. I called him back. I'm like, hey, this is not a cheap car. And we had the impression it would arrive pretty quickly. And he was like, yeah, yeah, Justin, I'm definitely working on it. Just want to let you know that within 48 hours, within the time you bought the car or you all agreed to buy the car, I sold like 8 cars of equal to or greater than value. This is a 6-figure car. So this guy had done like $1 million worth of sales
Well,
in like a few days.
yeah.
And so then the wheels really started turning in my head. I was like, it turned into a like series of phone calls where I was just picking this guy's brain, just and taking notes. And before long, I was like, I'm gonna write a business plan. And then I told him I'm gonna write a business plan. And then he was like, I'll help you write the business plan.
Well,
Not only will I help you write the business plan, I can help you with inventory, which is the hardest part. And so one thing led to another. We get the business plan written. And of course, everyone who reads it, who knows anything about business, is like, this plan is super unique because you're investing in assets. You're investing in inventory that's appreciating, which is, as you know, like your inventory that's sitting on the shelves for your business isn't necessarily getting more valuable every day. Yeah, I mean, luckily in your case, unlike my used car dealership, it's not depreciating really, but appreciating. So you're like literally investing in stuff that you're going to be selling, that you enjoy selling.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I wrote it with a dream and didn't expect to go out and get funding to be able to do it anytime soon. And the more people that read it, the more motivation and recommendations I got to go ahead and start pitching it to banks. Sure enough, I was a rookie at pitching to banks, so I scheduled an appointment with the biggest bank, one of the like national or international banks, like Bank of America, and was immediately shot down. Like, the guy clearly didn't even read the plan before I came for the appointment. He didn't even let me sit down in his office. Like, I show up in my suit and tie and ready to get some experience pitching, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm so sorry. I didn't really have time to prepare for this meeting, and I'm gonna have to pass. We can't touch classic cars."
And you're also how old though?
I was 20, mid 20s, so 27, 26. Yeah,
So very young to be asking for a big favor.
yeah, big, big, multi-million dollar loan.
Yeah.
And so, sure enough, I go to another big bank, and was, didn't really have hopes that were too high. I didn't expect to get a loan, like, anytime soon. And so sure enough, the second guy actually prepared for the meeting, and he let me sit down, and he did read the business plan, and he was like, "Man, this is a really good plan. You did a good job on it, but we don't touch classic cars." And I was like, "Ah, that's what Joe or whoever over at Bank of America said." He's like, "But you do know some people here in town that are in more like local regional banks that have guidelines that are a little bit easier and that might consider something like this, especially when considering you're buying stuff that's appreciating. I was like, okay, I'm not going to name names, like specific names or entities, and you'll understand why here in a little while, but we'll just call him Bill. Go talk to Bill at Bank X, and I think you'll have a much better shot at getting the loan there. And I'm like, okay, anything else? He's like, no, I think you'll be good. So I get up to walk out. As I'm about to walk out of his office, he was like, hey, one more thing. If you know someone who knows cars that has like a decent amount of gray hair on their head, I recommend you take them with you. And I was like, okay, all right, I've got someone in mind, you know? So sure enough, I call Bank X, set an appointment with Bill. And of course, as I already alluded to, my dad is, he knows a little bit about cars and he had some gray hair on his head. So what initially started out as a 45-minute pitch meeting with Bill turned into my dad and I a couple of hours later walking out with a multi-million dollar loan commitment
Wow.
after they pulled in all these members of the loan committee, and it was like magic. The last thing I expected, I'm sure my dad, with all of his experience in business, wasn't necessarily too surprised just because of his accomplishments and that kind of stuff. So, on the other hand, I was also planning on going to law school after graduating with those 3 degrees, and I kinda had an idea of where I was going when I walked into the meeting, and when I walked out, I was like, "Holy crap, my life is, like, about to do a 180 here."
Yeah.
So, sure enough, that was in December of '07. We were open. We were fully open with inventory and a website, everything by March 15th of '08. So, I will go ahead now, just so we can right off the bat here in the podcast, introduce a little bit of craziness. Mention the fact that on the weekend we opened. We opened on a Saturday. There was a call or a series of calls between Jamie Dimon, who was the CEO of JP Morgan Chase Bank, and Alan Schwartz, who is the CEO of Stearns, Bear Stearns, big investment bank. And they were basically discussing finding a way to keep Bear Stearns alive because they're literally about to be forced into bankruptcy. And this is also, like, touched on in the movie The Big Short and several books,
Right.
right? So, they end up having to infuse billions, many billions of dollars. Chase has to infuse many billions of dollars into Bear Stearns just to keep them afloat. The weekend we open.
Which obviously you didn't know until when.
I didn't know until right around my birthday, about 6 months later, that all hell was about to break loose.
Wow.
I get the chills. 'Cause when I say all hell broke loose, like, we went from, of course, like any other startup, the first month and a half to 2 months was very stressful. I was still finishing up at one of the toughest business schools in the country, but I was working so much and going to school that I often would not sleep more than, say, 25 hours in an entire week.
Well,
So, like, 4 hours a night or so. I would work 7 days a week. It was just, like, crazy, crazy. Like, stuff like you hear about, like Elon and other entrepreneurs that just are totally and completely determined to ensure that they do everything they possibly can to succeed. So, yeah, little did we know that we were basically doomed on the day we opened. And with all that being said, we still hit our stride a couple months in. We started moving inventory, a good amount of inventory, millions of dollars in sales, made another big purchase in inventory from the gentleman that I mentioned earlier. And it was kind of an if you build it, they will come scenario because due to the big loan we got and the inventory we were carrying, we went out and got a really nice location at a prime intersection in Madison, Wisconsin. And for Madison, which is kind of a medium sized town,
mhm.
this was a world-class facility. And more specifically, if you build it, they will come. We have these technicians showing up saying, "Hey, when are you going to open a shop, like a service center type division?" And I was like, "Well, the guy that we bought these cars from guaranteed us that his reconditioning team is going to go through all these cars, and we don't really need to worry about reconditioning them before we sell them because they're going to be, investment grade, tip top vehicles."
Right.
Well,
For those who don't know, like the investment grade type vehicles, give me an average on how much you're selling these cars for.
man, I think when we opened the cheapest car we had in stock was, I mean, maybe 40 grand. And then they were six figures. A lot of them were six-figure cars.
And again,
So
this is years ago, so just
yeah,
to give people some perspective too.
again, yeah, 2008. So 18 years ago, you can buy a lot more with $40,000 back then than you can now.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like something out of the movies, like that whole progression between December of '07 and the middle of '08. It was like, I'll just go ahead and say it. It was like, it was almost too easy.
Yeah.
And as I know now, and as you and I discuss, if it seems too good to be true, it almost always is.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, ultimately, the bank gave you the loan also because your business plan or in your business was basically bulletproof,
yeah,
or so they thought.
well, everyone, yeah, that
Yeah.
was the thing. Like, when people tried to shoot holes in it, the number one question was, so what are you going to do if there's like a downturn in the economy? And the response that we included in the plan was that wealthy people buy what they want when they want. We're
Hmm.
talking about generally the top 2, maybe 3% of the population that we're targeting. It was an easy objection to overcome.
Right.
No one, no one, not one person was like, what happens if we get to depression, Great Depression level metrics or worse?
Yeah.
Like, not one person.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we did everything we could to run the business the right way. I had several of my buddies who were on our team. I had like VP of marketing, VP of advertising,
Hmm.
VP of IT. But these guys are all, business school students, or my VP of IT, Eric, ended up founding a company and selling it for a ton of money out in Silicon
Oh yeah.
Valley. So we were like, I mean, we wear our Benchmark Classic shirts to business school. We would talk in classes about the business and what we were learning. And
Mm.
one of the professors wasn't a big fan of it just because we missed a little bit more class than we probably should have. Anyways, it ended up being too good to be true on the one hand. On the other hand, people like Mark Cuban say that being extremely successful in business requires luck.
Hmm.
On the flip side of that, if you open on the same day that one of the most legendary banks of all time is saved by one of the biggest banks ever, then I would argue that it's kind of hard to come up with a scenario that's more unlucky. I've had a number of unlucky situations occur in my life, but my gosh, that was just like
Yeah.
crazy.
And I think as you continue to tell the story, people are gonna really understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, step 1 here. So, yeah, the classic car market was so hot that we were just it was like, get a car in, get a photo shot, write a description, get it online. Once it hit the marketing channels, eBay was a big seller of cars back then, even these really high dollar cars. We get those things online, and I mean, we were just turning them. And it started to kind of slip, like I said, late summer of '08. And then in September, like I said, right around my birthday, it was like someone just flipped a switch.
Wow. 6 months, huh?
Yeah, yeah. As I was kind of alluding to a minute ago, we were also developing a restoration shop to work on cars because even though we didn't really push it hard in the business plan, we were like, it would be good to offer related services, and these technicians are just showing up out of the woodwork. Unlike my current set of businesses, I had to start in a trailer. I learned a lot the first time. Do not go out and get a big giant loan unless you're absolutely certain, which doesn't exist in business, that you're going to be successful from the jump.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there are exceptions. If you're a tech company and you've got some algorithm or code base that's like dynamite. Um, so anyways, we start working on cars. And it turns out that we also start getting some phone calls because a lot of these people just put these cars in their collections. They don't drive them. We start getting phone calls that the cars are having some issues, and some cars are having a ton of issues. Headlights aren't working, brake lights aren't working, and I'm calling this guy that we bought the inventory from, and I'm like, hey man, I thought you said these cars are going to be ready to go, and he was like, yeah, my team went through them. They should be good. And I'm like, man, they're like some of these cars aren't even close. And I end up having a near death experience in one of these cars because we would take them to car shows. And to make a long story short, with the near death experience, I'm in a 32 Ford Highboy Roadster, which is a true roadster, no convertible top, no seat belts because they weren't required in 1932. I'm driving down the highway and I pull off the exit to go to the car show we're going to. And right as I pull into the parking lot, the rear end, the differential that sends the power out to the wheels locks up, like completely locks up. And I can't move the car at all. Turns out that there was no fluid in the differential, which is where the motor, the power comes from the transmission and sends the power out to the wheels. It has to have lubricant in it, fluid, differential fluid, and it had none. In other words, if I would have had to go one more exit further down on the highway to go to this car show, there's a good chance the rear end most likely would have locked up while I was on the highway with no seat belts
Wow.
in this very unsafe car. So this guy literally almost killed me. Then in another situation, I'm taking another car to the same car show a different week because it was basically like a weekly car night at this it was called Quaker Steak and Lube, kind of a play on
Hmm.
Quaker Steak oil and other automotive products. But anyway, it was I believe a 1970 GTO Judge, super valuable car. The engine completely fails
Wow.
on the way. So anyway, it's getting very dicey with this inventory that we're getting from this guy. So luckily, this team that I'm assembling is able to help on the one hand. On the other hand, this is just the tip of the iceberg with this gentleman that we thought was a good actor, and we'll circle back around to that. But back to the sky falling, September of '08, I had not seen in my entire life, and like the first thing that I ever read, because due to my dyslexia, I like hated reading. The first thing I ever read were car magazines. And the Bible of collector cars is called Hemmings Motor News. It was a lot more popular back in the day, and I I just studied it, and that's how I learned the car market. That's how we would find some of the inventory that we would buy, if we didn't get it from this other guy. And based on what I was seeing, I predicted that the classic car market was going to basically completely collapse. It had already started in September or October. It was, like I said, right around my birthday. And I had to call our banker and say, hey, Bill, I hate to say this. We're less than a year into our relationship, but I need to sell everything I have and I need to do it as quickly as possible. And I might be losing some money on some of these cars. And he was like, are you kidding me? I was like, no. He's like, you need to chill out. Like, I'm not even going to go to loan committee to get approval for you to lose money on our collateral. And I was like, our collateral? You made me personally guarantee this loan. So I should be able to, like, first of all, I'm not just going to lose money and shut the business down. My goal is to get this inventory moving faster by reducing the prices extremely quick. And I have other people who I've sold cars to in the past that are calling me saying, "Hey, I just lost my job. I work at a bank or I work in, something in the mortgage-backed securities industry or something. And if I don't sell this car quickly, then I might lose my house."
Well.
So the goal was to move everything we had as quickly as possible and then to keep getting inventory in and moving it as quickly as possible, just like we do now at our current dealership
Mhm.
with late model vehicles. You got to move them quick. This banker wasn't having any of it. He was like, yeah, man, you're just young and paranoid because you're technically kind of a rookie in business. And I was like, Bill, I'm not a rookie, man. Like, I started mowing lawns when I was 12 to buy my first car at 14. Like, I know how business works, and it's pretty simple. If you don't have enough top line that produces enough gross profit to cover your expenses, you go out of business.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that based on our current pace, we are not going to be able to sell our inventory at a rate fast enough to produce enough gross profit to pay all of our expenses in the very near future. We will be insolvent. And he was like, "Calm down, man. I know how you feel. It's fall. Remember, car sales slow down. People don't buy as many toys. You're in Madison, Wisconsin. It's probably just a seasonal slowdown." I was like, "Bill, mark my words. This is not a seasonal slowdown." And he was like, "Just just at least give it a couple weeks." Well, a couple weeks go by. I call him back. I'm like, "Bill, it's getting worse, not better." And he's like, "Okay, I'm sorry. I should have said a couple months. We need to get through the winter." I'm like, "Bill, I don't know if we're gonna make it through the winter." And he's like, "I am not going to loan committee this quick in our relationship to get approval for you to lose money on these cars. So you need to find the money to come up. If you want to sell them for less than you owe on them, then you need to come up with the money to cover the losses." And I was like, I need a partner, a business partner, a bank that's gonna allow me to do what I know how to do. Even though I'm young, I need the support. I need to be able to do what I have to do to save this business. So, of course, what do you do in that case? You call your attorney. And on the one hand, on the other hand, as you know from attending another meeting with me when we were in the process of buying this building,
Mm.
if you get attorneys involved with a bank, then it turns into a almost like it reminds me of the book, The Scarlet Letter. I don't know if you've read it or not, but it's about adultery and Scarlet Letter A. Anyway, the bottom line is if you get attorneys involved with a bank, you better be ready for that to haunt you for the rest of your life. And sure enough, it did. In the case, in the meeting that you attended, we I guess just so everyone knows real quick, we go to this meeting with the assumption that we're going to finalize the terms to buy this building, and we're meeting with the chief lending officer. And because I told him what this other bank did to me and what we did in return, we lost the loan. We almost lost this building.
Yeah.
We had to find another bank really quickly, and it just turned into a huge mess.
This
But
is 4 or 5 years ago. So,
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I call our general counsel, who's a partner at a big highly respected firm, and the conversation didn't even last 10 minutes. He was like, "You have got to, I hate to say it, but number 1, I'm not gonna be able to represent you. My firm is not gonna be able to represent you due to conflicts with the bank. We also represent them in some matters." And I'm immediately in my mind, just based on the basic business law classes I've taken, thinking like, "Is he about to say bankruptcy?" And sure enough, he did. And he's like, "Yeah, as quickly as possible, you need to retain a bankruptcy attorney." I'm like,
wow. Oh my God.
"Yeah, yeah."
6 months in, man. That's crazy.
We interviewed a couple bankruptcy attorneys that he recommended, and, they both basically said the same thing, and that is that if you wanna have any shot at making it through this, then one of these attorneys that these bankruptcy attorneys we pick are gonna have to contact the bank on your behalf to ensure that they know we are deadly serious and that we will file for bankruptcy, whether it's Chapter 11 or Chapter 7, in order to protect you and your business. And I was like, "I'm not there's no freaking way I'm filing for bankruptcy, like, no way. Are you kidding me?" It was really the only option. So we filing wasn't the only option. Having that type of attorney was the only option to contact them at that time. So we went through those steps, and sure enough, we got the bank's attention eventually. However, in the meantime, when considering what I described, we might not make it till the end of the year. And we can't really buy many cars because we've got our inventory locked up. Our capital's locked up in this inventory that we're not allowed to reduce below what we paid for it. I'm like, you know me, like, how am I gonna do what am I gonna do and how am I gonna do it to make sure that we're making every penny we can in every way possible? So we get this restoration shop going and we're getting all this work in. Even though the economy's slowing down, we're going to car shows. And I quickly learned that if you want to get attention at a car show, you don't take a car that's finished. You take a very unique car that is like in primer.
Mm.
But in this case, we end up taking I'll say the case that's pertinent to this. This is where the Tucker story officially begins. We had a '57, what they call Fuley Corvette in our shop that was in primer, and we would also take the hood off. We'd leave the hood at the shop, especially with a unique engine. Like a Fuley means fuel injected. That's the old school mechanical fuel injection. It's very clear if you know what you're looking at that this is not a regular Corvette. This is like for the mid-50s Corvettes, this is the car to have. This is back when Chevrolet achieved 1 horsepower per cubic inch.
Mm.
It was through this fuel injection system. And so we have this car at the show, again, up in Wisconsin, and this guy comes strolling up. Many guys came strolling up because of the car, but this guy in particular knew what he was looking at, uh, in great detail. And I could tell because I was just talking to random people, but I learned to keep an eye on, like, who some, like, serious prospects might be to either sell the car or sell restoration work.
Mm.
And so this guy, like, he's feeling like where the wheel wells are, there in those cars, there are these ridges, original ridges from the factory that people will feel to see if the car has been wrecked and repaired in the past. And of course, if they haven't been wrecked in the past, they're worth more because they're more original. So he's doing like all these things that are leading me to know that he's a real deal car guy. And then he walks around to the engine, he leans over and he looks at the serial number or data tag on the fuel injection unit, and he immediately looks at me and just basically makes a beeline towards me. I just finished up talking to this other guy about the same car there and some related work, I think, restoration work, and Al is this guy's name. Al's like, "That's a real deal high horse," being the high horsepower version of the fuel injection because there were multiple versions. "This is a real deal high horse Fuley, 57 Fuley." I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "And it's got a date code correct fuel injection unit." He's like, "What are you gonna do with this car?" And I was like, "Well, we're gonna paint it. We're gonna put the interior back in it. We're gonna make sure it's mechanically sound, and we're gonna sell it." He's like, "How much?" I was like, "120,000." He's like, "I noticed also that the stampings, the date codes are correct on the engine block." I was like, "Yes, sir. It's a correct car. It's gonna be a show quality investment grade car when we're done." He's like, "What color is it gonna be?" I was like, Arctic blue with Inca silver coves and the standard cream colored interior." He's like, "Oh, that sounds beautiful. I don't know if I've ever seen that combo before." I was like, "Yeah, it's rare. Definitely rare." And he's like, "Are you firm on the price?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He's like, "Okay, I'll take it."
Wow.
I'm like, "Okay." $120,000 car. Of course, the bullshit meter is, like, immediately pegged at a level 10, because it just doesn't usually happen like that, especially when the car's not finished. You don't usually get a commitment. You might get a deposit. And then he just, like, immediately is like, "Give me 2 of your business cards." I was like, "Okay, that's interesting too." I don't know that I've had someone say, "Give me 2 of your cards." Maybe a few or 1, but not 2. And so, hand him 2 business cards, and he's like, "You got a pen?" And of course, I always carry a pen, as you know. That's like sales 101, like, always have an ability to write if you need to. And so, I hand him my pen, and he's over there writing on one of my cards, and then he hands it back. I look down, and sure enough, it's Al Reinert and a phone number, his contact information. And he's like, "If you don't hear from me within 7 days, call me. I've got a lot going on, and I'm in the process of selling my Tucker, and I think I'm gonna have the guys that are buying it, just send the money to you directly for this car." And I was like, "Tucker?" And he was like, "Yeah, I own a Tucker." And I was like, bullshit meter went from a level 10 of 10 to a level 12 of 10. As I said earlier, there were only enough parts produced to make like 50 or so cars, right? They're like unicorns, all of them. Like you
Wow.
never most people, like I said, never even see one, much less own one. And even then they were worth $1 million plus when they were finished. And he just didn't present himself in a way that would, I guess you could say, lead you to believe that he would have a collection of really valuable
Mm.
cars. He was sharp, but he wasn't very he was just kinda dressed average, so I was just like, "Alright, here we go. You just gotta deal with the guys who have dreams that they try to live in their head," and so I was respectful and everything. Of course, I didn't hear from him. But before he walked away, He's like, "You do know what a Tucker is, right?" And I was like, "Yes, sir, I do." He's like, "Well, I have the only convertible." So then the bullshit meter goes to a level 100 out of 10. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, you got the only convertible. That's awesome, man. That's awesome." Again, I'm in my mid-20s, right? So my filter for bullshit wasn't quite what it is now. I wasn't like an ass about it, but I was kinda like, "Yeah, okay, I'll talk to you in 7 days," And so sure enough, 7 days goes by, he doesn't call me, I call him, and he's crotchety. He's like, "These sorry sons of bitches, they keep leading me on. They tell me they're gonna send me the money for this car, and then they don't, and I'm done with them. I'm tired of waiting." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry to hear about that." And he's like, "I could tell you were questioning whether or not this car even exists. I could tell by the look on your face." I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Why don't you bring whoever you want? I understand you've got your team. We spoke about you finishing that Corvette. Why don't you bring whoever you want with you out here to my house in Burlington," which is about an hour and 45 minutes, something like that from Madison. "And you guys can take a look at my convertible Tucker, and we'll figure out whether or not we can maybe put some sort of a trade together." And that's like a light bulb moment went off. I'm like, this guy would not be inviting me to his house unless he's like a serial killer. If he didn't actually have this car, number one. And number two, maybe I can trade. Like, I can't really buy many vehicles, but maybe I can trade this Corvette and maybe a couple other vehicles because I knew he wasn't going to just take, I mean, the Holy Grail of Tuckers. Like I said, just a regular Tucker sedan, like this four door here, $1 million plus
Wow.
back in 2008. So I was like, this guy might be real. This car might be real. And we're going to load up the truck and we're going to go check this thing out. So sure enough, we get out there and in this guy's garage. So this guy lives in a house that's probably maybe 1,200 square feet. So relatively
Yeah.
small, like probably a two bedroom, one or two bath, little ranch style square house. And I'm like, oh shit, the bullshit meter's going off again. Like, there's no way that this guy owns a car that's worth more than like five of his houses. No
Yeah.
way. But sure enough, you look down his driveway and there's his garage is like as big as his house. It's like a four-car garage on this relatively small piece of property and narrow piece of property too. But we're already there. We'd already driven, an hour plus to get there. So we go up, we knock on the door. He's like, come on, come on. We go out to his garage, and sure enough, and we'll include in the podcast the actual picture that we took when we arrived and we saw the Holy Grail of Tuckers. Like,
Wow.
this car is sitting in the corner of his garage, and it is clearly a two-door, not a four-door. It is equipped with its correct Franklin flat six engine, the helicopter-derived engine. It has the convertible top assembly. The frame is sitting on the top of the windshield and connected to the back of the vehicle where it should be. The fenders are there. The doors were there. They were not the length of a sedan. They were longer,
Mhm.
and then just shelves and shelves of parts. And then he also had like an old like Chrysler 300 with a Hemi in it, which is another rare car. And so we're drooling.
How does a guy like that end up with a car like that?
So great question. Turns out that Al is or was, he's passed now, but Al was a Tucker guru. And it's, again, great question because the story of him getting it is interesting too. Because when the Tucker factory shut down, Tucker, he owed people money because he was drained of all of his money. He couldn't pay all of his bills. So Alex Tremulous was the chief of design at Tucker, and Alex Tremulous and Linky of Linky Engineering, who consulted on a lot of the design work for the prototype vehicles, they took this chassis number 57 away from the factory with the hope that they'll either get compensated for what they're owed, especially Linky Engineering, or keep the car, finish it, and have something that could be very valuable someday. Well, sure enough, this Al Reinert guy since he's like a huge Tucker fan and restored a number of Tuckers or was involved in a number of Tucker restorations, he ends up getting featured in a newspaper article in Chicago, like the Chicago Tribune or something like that. The whole article is about him and his Tucker projects and this and that. Tucker was actually headquartered in Chicago.
Mm.
So there's a lot of history there. And when articles are written about Tucker in the Chicago paper, or at least back then when the paper was a bigger deal, you would get a lot of correspondence from that. So
Right.
sure enough, from that, and there's irony here because we're talking about a newspaper article here that where we were featured. He was featured in an article, and sure enough, he gets a lead from the article that was written about him from people who own the Holy Grail of Tuckers. So they called him and they were like, "Hey, yeah, this car came from the factory, went to Linky Engineering with Alex Tremulous. He was involved with it, the chief designer, blah, blah, blah. And there's no way we're going to be able to finish it. It needs a number of hours worth of work to get it completely finished. We think you might be a good fit for it."
When you say
So
hours, just so the audience understands, like how many hours?
we stopped counting it at 5,000 man hours of labor.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, it was very there, like all the parts were there, all the primary components, like 98% of the parts were there, but it was never finished at the factory. And as a result, it needed, and it was a prototype. And, I guess we can quickly talk about car number 57. Car number 57 was documented in the book, The Indomitable Tin Goose, as being in the experimental department. There's notes and archives about car number 1057 originally being a sedan, again, like this one here, but they cut out the rear portion of the, I guess you could say, area behind the back seat, and they were going to do a wraparound rear glass version of the
Mm.
car. There's pictures of number 57 in the factory with that modification already made. We'll be sharing a picture of a car that appears to have been at the factory too, with its roof cut off of it.
Okay.
So the story goes that car number 57 was originally cut to be a wraparound rear glass car. Since it was in the experimental department and they valued a convertible as a prototype higher than maybe the wraparound rear glass, or maybe even the cut that they made wasn't, they didn't like it. So they're like, huh, might as well cut the roof off. We'll turn this one into the convertible. Right. So anyway, the car goes for years, it sits. Alan, I think I already mentioned, he bought it in 1981. Right.
Mm.
So it sat from the late 40s, early 50s, all the way to 1981 with relatively no progress made. And then Alan had it from 1981 until 2008,
Mm.
when December of '08, when we end up putting this deal together. So just to kind of preface the deal, the conversation wasn't short and simple when we were looking at this car. It wasn't just about the components in the car. It was about the history, right? Like the provenance. Al showed us pictures of Egan, who was another Phil Egan, who was another Tucker designer working on a model for a two-door coupe. He showed us his copy of the Indomitable Tin Goose, which we can also include, that has a signature from Alex Tremulous in the book, to Alan. He showed us a letter from Mel Keppen. Mel was a verified Tucker employee. In the letter, he specifically asks about the Tucker convertible,
Mm.
right? So, and just, I guess, to put this out there, my partners and I in this business were not knuckleheads. We weren't spring chickens. We knew about cars. We knew about investment grade cars. There's no way in the world, when considering what was going on with the economy and our business, that we would risk everything we have on a car we believed was, as the New York Times put it, potentially an elaborate hoax.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Which is again really why it drags a lot of attention and is very polarizing.
right. Yeah. So it just, I mean, we'll also share, we've got a Tucker Topics from June of 1994, in which the Tucker convertible was mentioned. We'll share that also. But yeah, it is very, very interesting how it all unfolded from there because no matter how you look at it, experimental car number 1057 needed to be finished. Someone was going to finish this car, and we made the decision that it was going to be us.
Wow.
Benchmark Classics was going to finish this car. And yeah, we ended up putting a deal together that involved trading that 57 Corvette, a 54 Corvette, a Ford Thunderbird, a diamond ring, cash, like all sorts of stuff. We basically threw everything in the, as they say, the kitchen sink at the deal to get it done.
I understand you basically traded assets. How much do you think it was total?
475,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
for something that needed thousands of hours worth of work.
When you know there's this incredible history happening with the economy, when you know that you're not supposed to be buying cars like or projects like that, possibly, because I guarantee your bank was not very happy with that.
No, no, things went from bad to worse with the bank when they found out what we did. On the one hand, on the other hand, there was zero evidence, in our opinion, that number one, this wasn't a Tucker. Number two, it wasn't number 57, it has 57 stamped all over it. Number three, the letter from the Tucker Corporation accountant was legit because we also have paycheck stubs to prove that he worked there and a newspaper clipping showing him at the actual trial when Tucker went to trial, right? So it's like, what else do you want? And we'll get more to that later. But yeah, I mean, it was ironically, we just this last weekend saw the movie The Hail Mary Project, and it was a calculated Hail Mary,
Mm.
which don't in football, the Hail Mary is like the deep pass at the end of the game to try to hopefully win, um, which is pretty risky on the one hand. On the other hand, it was very calculated.
Mhm.
Like, and that kind of just leads me right into the next chapter of the story, which is we have this car. It's going to take us at least, in best case scenario, 6 months to get it done. Absolute best case. And we don't have unlimited money. We don't have unlimited time. How am I going to get this car in front of as many people as possible as quickly as possible? Because we basically need to find a seller, or excuse me, a buyer before we even finish it. And I have this light bulb moment. I'm going to put the car, we're going to put it together the best we can, take pictures of it, throw it on eBay with a $5 million buy it now price. And sure enough, it went haywire. Like we were getting so many leads on the car that my receptionist and I were like, her desk was in front of mine and I had glass doors. We kept my door shut so she could be talking to one person, getting them ready to talk to me. I would be handling, the lead, more serious leads. And it was just like that all day. That's when I learned to type a response to one email while on the phone with someone else, like, because it was just that busy. And sure enough, she spins around. She had this like signal to let me know if there was something important or someone important that I needed to talk to. And she spun around, did that. And I could read her lips because she was like, New York Times. And I was like,
Wow.
sir, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to give you a call back. She immediately transfers the phone over or the call over. And sure enough, it is not only the New York Times. He told me he was an editor in the business section who occasionally wrote very special stories about very special cars for the automotive section. And as an entrepreneur, even this to this day, even though the New York Times isn't the physical paper that it used to be,
Right.
the New York Times is still one of the premier publications in the world. So we go from a Hail Mary to posting it on eBay to the New York Times calling, and this guy and I spent it felt like hours on the phone talking about the car and the story, and it was very exciting. Again, I was a lot younger then. It was easier to excite me back then. And sure enough, he's like, "Man, this is gonna be really, really cool because I'm gonna blend a human interest story with another human interest story. More specifically, I'm going to parallel you and what you and your team are going through with the recession to what Preston Tucker and his team were going through when he was tied up in court. And then more importantly, we have this Tucker Convertible, this like unicorn. Another thing about this car, since it wasn't finished, it had 0 original miles on it,
Wow.
right? So
Yeah.
it's one thing to find a really rare car. It's another thing to find one that was never even driven because
Right.
it was never finished,
Wow.
right? So I mean, any car with 0 miles on it pretty much that has any collectible value at all is worth significantly more because it's basically like still like a new car. So ironically, again, that was in early 2009 when we were on the phone. The article didn't come out until my dad's birthday to the day, July 24th, 2009.
No.
So it wasn't weeks, it was like months, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. It was a long period of time before this article comes out. I found it interesting that his name's Jim Norman, who wrote the article. I found it interesting that he waited towards the end of the call to bring up some, like, chatter he had heard about and maybe seen in a blog or a car club website. I honestly, I didn't even, like, other than the Tucker Topics newsletter, physical newsletter that the seller showed us that discussed this car, I didn't know what the Tucker Automobile Club of America was. I mean,
Mm,
it's pretty self-explanatory,
mm.
but I was like, "Okay." So he's like, "Yeah, there's some people there at the club that are kinda chattering online about this car, and they're questioning its authenticity." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting because, I rattled off the same things I just rattled off to you about the letter from the
Yeah.
accountant, all this."
Which by the way, you can find on tuckerconvertible.com.
Yeah, yeah, there's a whole documentation section there. And another critical thing I'll mention is that this car also had a factory reinforced frame. So if you imagine cutting the roof off of that car there and removing all the support that the roof provides, the car could start to sag, especially the older cars
Mm,
because they weren't designed to
mm.
be a convertible just by cutting the roof off.
Okay.
So this car is the only Tucker that I know of that sits on a traditional, what appears to be traditional Tucker frame. There were some other experimental frames, but this frame has ovular inner reinforcement inside of a box metal wrap frame. What that means is you're not, first of all, tubular steel is hard enough to bend. You have to have like a special tool to build tubular steel. Ovular steel is significantly harder to bend. The frame for this car was clearly made in a manufacturing setting.
Mm.
It's not some guy named Al in his
Yeah.
garage with no bending equipment, not even close,
Yeah.
making a frame for this car, right?
Sure.
So, anyway, we end the call with, that, like I said, just a little bit of conversation about that. Yeah. Chatter, not I'm not worried about that. And as you know, drama sells, right? So, on my dad's birthday, this article comes out and it's 51% real, 49% fake. Is it real? Is it fake? Is this an elaborate hoax? Now, Jim didn't specifically say, is this an elaborate hoax? He said that the naysayers that were on this, communicating on this website were accusing me of and
Wow.
my team and partners of engaging in an elaborate hoax.
Well, if you have never worked with an editor before, they don't obviously send you what they're gonna write, and it's kinda like a surprise. I expected you to, like, obviously be hoping that the article was 100% positive, that it was gonna bring a ton of attention, that it was gonna save basically your business. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess the best words to describe the conversation, like I said, excited and honored to be compared to Preston Tucker. And it gave me a lot of, energy. Of course, I told the team, and we were like, hell yeah, New York Times,
Yep,
like
yep.
this is going to be huge. And it was huge. It definitely was huge because that drama did sell papers. And all of a sudden, this Tucker convertible, which again is the Holy Grail, ends up becoming the most popular classic car in the world. The Sacramento Bee and all these other publications basically mirrored the New York Times article, which is common. in press, like, they'll just take the same story and run it in other publications,
Yep. Yep.
and yeah, the phone was ringing off the hook again, and this time, we had, of course, people who were interested in the car, and then we also more, I guess you could say importantly, had the directors of these giant car shows calling, saying, "Hey, I'm calling from Hershey, PA, which
Mm.
is, like, the home of the world's largest car show, and we have to have your car here."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I appreciate the invitation, I'm honored, but there's no way I can bring this car to your show, it's not done. I have to get it done, I have to sell it." They're like, "You have to bring like, we'll pay you, like, this
Wow.
will cover your fuel, we'll cover your room." They're just making all sorts of offers, like, these car shows. I obviously don't remember the specific offers from each specific show, so I'm not claiming that Hershey specifically said they were gonna cover all of our expenses. I'm just saying we got a lot of calls from a lot of directors and other personnel at these shows saying, "Please bring us this
Yep.
car.
Yep.
It will be worth it," you know? And so, of course, we think about it and we're like, "You know what? If we don't do it, we'll look back on these invitations as potentially some of the biggest mistakes we ever made."
Mm.
Because if you get the car in front of the right person, they'll just like Al committed to buy the '57 Fuelie for 6 figures, there's a chance that someone will commit 7 figures,
Yep.
to buy this Tucker. So sure enough, my team and I were working around the clock. I was delivering Red Bulls and pizzas in the middle of the night, and we would stop working, load this thing up, drive it out to, in that case, Hershey, PA from Madison, Wisconsin, all the way on the East Coast. And it was pretty clear. I can't remember the exact order of these shows. I think Hershey, PA was one of the first big ones we went to, but we had to have security. We had to have a special tent for the car because between when that article was published and when we started showing it publicly, we were getting threats.
Wow.
Threats. Like not death threats, but the argument over the car got so heated online that we were having to issue press releases.
Mm.
Press releases about a freaking car that we're trying to preserve and present to the world, like, so people can enjoy. And instead, we're being accused of attempting to commit fraud
Right.
and do all these terrible things. And at the end of the day, regardless of the car and the factory's intentions, which we genuinely to this day still know that the intent with that reinforced frame was to produce a convertible. But regardless of that, it's still experimental car 1057. It's still a
Yep.
super valuable car. It should still be finished. And no, we're not converting it back to a sedan when we have a freaking letter from a Tucker Corporation accountant who would know about this stuff, talking specifically about the Tucker convertible, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, we have to have security for the car. We get it out there to Hershey. We'll share some pics of that. Also, I mean, it was a rock star. I mean, like, there was no other car that even came close to this car.
Yeah.
Like, people were asking, we would print up these little flyers, which we'll include a picture of that in the B-roll, but, like, people were asking me for my autograph, like, because of this car, right? I've been to a lot of car shows with a lot of cars, and that's the only car that people were asking me for my autograph, you know?
Yeah.
It was interesting because they tried to kick us out of the show, like, that first I think Hershey was the first big one, and the naysayers, like, formed a little angry mob and went to the directors, and they're like, "Yeah, you've got someone here trying to commit fraud,
Oh
you've
my
got
God.
them displaying this car, you know, someone might get taken advantage of," and, of course, they failed to get us kicked out. It was bullshit then, and it's to this day, there's bullshit.
Yeah. There's always gonna be haters when somebody does something big. There's always gonna be haters.
So, sure enough, Al, the guy we bought the car from, and since Al's no longer with us, I have no way of, like, really verifying this, but if you look at my channel, I have, like, a series of 4 or 5 interview sections where I interviewed Al and posted them on YouTube, like, 15 or
Mm.
16 years ago.
Well,
So I invite people to go back to my old videos and just listen to the guy talk about the car. Like, form your own opinion about this guy.
yeah. Which again, this is exactly why we're doing this episode. We want you guys to form your own opinion as you should with all the material in front of you.
So he was like, his claim was like, "Well, Justin, I didn't really think that this would matter this much, but the guys who were trying to buy the car when I met you were affiliated with the club." And of course, I'm like, "Okay, so they don't get the car, sour grapes. All of a sudden, it's mentioned in their Tucker Topics newsletter as the Tucker Convertible. We've got the chief of design signing, on the owner's book, who he knows is finishing the Tucker Convertible. We have all this stuff that flips 180 degrees. Why? Because they didn't get the car.
Mhm.
Okay, so it was just a huge distraction. Uh, Most of the noise came from people who would never in a million years have enough money to buy a Tucker
Mhm.
sedan or a
Of course.
convertible. And so that's on the one hand. On the other hand, there was blatant lies being told. Like there is one individual in particular, of course, I'm not going to name his name because that's not why we're here, but he made up an entire story that we had bought a bunch of parts from a guy who had basically like a little museum in Roscoe, Illinois, and he had some really cool cars there, but he also had the kind of collection of parts that came from this other collector from various Tuckers, and there were probably almost enough parts to make a car. So the story had holes right through it because Roscoe, Illinois is not that far from Madison, Wisconsin. So to make that portion of the story very condensed, we confirmed for sure that this individual was telling this story to a lot of people who are interested in potentially buying it. He even told the story to me directly because I was
Wow.
like, "Hey," I just called like real friendly, like, "Hey, I heard you have a lot of history on my car." And he actually tried to tell me a story that was completely bogus about my
Mm.
own car.
Well,
I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah, okay." Um, well, I appreciate all the information. Just want to let you know that I was taking notes throughout our conversation, and as a part of taking those notes, I went ahead and recorded the call. And of course, he's like, "Oh, well, you don't have my permission to do anything with this than just note taking purposes." And I was like, "Okay, understood." So what did I do? I used my notes to write a press release. And of course, he was super pissed. And it would be one thing if he was telling the truth, but he wasn't.
mm,
So it's just like that's the level that people would are willing to go into this day. Like, the reason we're rushing this into production, like, we're having this conversation right now, we're taking a few hours out of our day, a couple days after we saw a post on it, is because even the guy that we bought a donor vehicle for to get some parts that we needed, as I said, the convertible top frame was on the car, the geometry was all correct. We knew that they were Tucker was basing their design for the convertible on General Motors components, which is super common, like we've already touched on, I believe, and if not, I'll mention it because I did a lot of prep for this, obviously. So another company that produced cars back then was called Cord. A lot of Tuckers have Cord transmissions. That's a major component, right? There's a various like door handles that were from other cars. There's it's just really common, right? So we look at this convertible top assembly and we look at the part numbers or the casting numbers and we can't get them to jive with any General Motors components. But we did notice that the convertible top was very similar to late 40s General Motors convertibles. So what do? Number one, since it's a prototype, you don't even have to have a working convertible top. But you know me, I'm like, not only is it going to have a working convertible top, it's going to be power,
mm,
which a lot of old school tops are
sure.
manual. So like, we're going to engineer a working power top as if it came from a production line, not a prototype with some wannabe convertible top. So we buy this donor car, we take a few components that we need to, make everything correct where the convertible top mounts in the back. And we post a video again on this same channel where this podcast is going to be posted. There's a video from like 2009 or 2010. I think we shot it in 9, maybe posted it a little bit later. But anyway, it's of that same top that was sitting on the car when we found it in Al's garage, going up and down via the power system that we installed using the components we got from the donor car. That's been online for years, over
Mhm.
a decade. This guy that we saw in this post the other day is claiming, who knows if it's really him,
Right.
but he's claiming that he sold us the donor car and would have never sold us the car if he would have known we were going to use it in an attempt to defraud people. Like,
Yep. I was the one who saw that comment and I was like, "Do you see this?" And I cannot even imagine what you felt again so many years later, just looking at again a hater comment from somebody who he probably wishes that he had gotten that project for himself, because he would have done the exact same thing, finish it if he could have.
if he could have, and if like I haven't even confirmed if this is like the guy that we actually bought it from. I mean, we do know, like as I already, mentioned, people literally lie to try to hurt this car and its reputation and me. And obviously my partners back then and my team. Like, so it's the gloves have been off for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and just so you guys know, I mean, I pushed Justin to do this episode, and he's like, "You don't understand," and I'm like, "I think I get it." I think it's gonna have a lot of controversial comments as he has experienced over the years. But again, if it's gonna be brought to light again, it's only fair for you to tell your story, and because you never really have in this way. So
In the way I debunked the story about buying the collection of parts in Roscoe, Illinois, I bought a USA Today newspaper. I drove to Roscoe. I draped that paper, the cover of that paper, all over all these parts and took a bunch of pictures
yep,
and then posted them on our website.
yep,
Like, and then at this point, we'll introduce Al Pruitt. So Al Pruitt is a legend in car restoration. He won, I think, at least one, if not two, Lifetime Achievement Awards from the AACA, which is the Antique Automobile, I think, collectors organization. Anyway, he worked in classic cars his like whole career, and he knew the Tucker convertible before Al Reinert bought it. So that's another thing we have in the documentation section is an affidavit, not only an affidavit from Al Pruitt talking about when he saw it and the fact that it was a convertible before Al bought it. Not only before, but like 19, I think he saw it in like 1962 or something like that. So these haters or whatever you want to call them are claiming that Al Reinert converted a sedan into a convertible, a four-door sedan into a two-door convertible, but this car was seen, serial number 57 was seen almost 20 years before he bought it as a convertible, and it had a reinforced frame at that time, right? So it's like not even close. Like these stories that were being told are not even close. And it was very cool to talk to Al because we recorded that conversation too. It's also on the same YouTube channel that this podcast is going to be aired on. And I invite everyone to watch Al Pruitt talk about the car. You tell me if that old man, that who's clearly still very sharp, was sitting there lying. Like this, I challenge anyone to like question his integrity because he's not going to risk his reputation to just say some random BS about a
hmm
one car.
hmm
Like, and I certainly didn't have money to pay anybody, and I wouldn't pay anyone to just say random stuff that wasn't true about a car.
right,
It just wasn't even close to being legitimate when people were, making all these claims. Their claims weren't legitimate. I'm going to make that clear. The car was legitimate. Their claims weren't,
yeah,
right? So here we are just trying to, at the time, preserve history and present it to the public. And instead of being, I don't want to use the word praised, um, but anything close to being praised, we're being attacked. Like we're under heavy fire. And just to put it into perspective, if someone brought us this car today and said, we want you to finish it, the labor alone would be at least a $500,000.
wow,
That's what we would tell them. Forget about the paint or any parts that we have to fabricate.
mm,
Because, like I said, about 2% of the parts were missing.
yep,
So it's $1 million job, probably today, right? So we're investing all this time, all this money, all this effort, blood, sweat, tears into this project, and we're being attacked. and
Mhm.
we're marching through the Great Recession.
Right. You're like almost losing your business in the meantime. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's here we are on No Surrender talking about we're
Yeah.
talking about no surrender moments,
Well,
right?
precisely why I have been wanting to have this conversation again. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a technician, but I was working on the car myself because we were literally doing everything we possibly could to get
yeah.
it done, and then take it to another show. And sure enough, out at that Hershey, PA show, we sold it. We found a buyer. They were gonna pay, I think, like, right around 2.4 million for it, and he was gonna trade us some cars and then a bunch of money, and the money was gonna come when he closed on a big piece of property. I think he specialized in resort properties that he would sell to hotels. And sure enough, what kicked off the recession? The mortgage-backed securities market collapsed. Real
Mm.
estate, right?
Mhm.
So sure enough, they go to close on this transaction, and the bank requires another appraisal. They want a second opinion on the appraisal. The second appraisal comes in, and due to the market conditions, comes in at a number that was lower than the minimum loan to value that the bank had agreed to. The deal falls apart.
Wow.
So, of course, we left Hershey, PA with the belief we're fine.
Yeah.
It's finally done.
Right.
Like, we're gonna get a big deposit. We're gonna paint it whatever color he wants. We're gonna put whatever interior in it. We're gonna be fine. Like, everyone's gonna get to keep their jobs. And then sure enough, that deal falls apart, you know? From there, we went to the Keels and Wheels show down in Houston with the car. It was pretty cool. We'll include some pictures there where it's like the only car under a permanent covered structure, and there are these like $1 million plus cars sitting out in the open.
Wow.
And our car is in primer,
Yeah.
and like the like all the metal, the bright work, it's not chromed yet, so it looks like bronze or copper.
Mm.
But we did paint it a color similar to the primer was actually a color similar to the color it ended up being, so it looked like this kind of unique, like,
Mm.
what the hell project is that? I probably told the story of the car a million times when you combine that, plus another big one was the Rodeo Drive concourse out in Beverly Hills, and, there's nothing quite like having the stars kicked off of Rodeo Drive, so these cars can be parked, and then even then, they were like, "You have to park your trailer here, and your car is gonna be parked, like, a block away." I was like, "Okay, please make sure that we only have to drive the car a block because the insurance on this car is insane, and I can't just be driving it around." Well, it's kind of bittersweet in this case because they screwed up our parking, and I had to drive the car pretty much all the way down Rodeo Drive. The road was closed, and the celebrities are on the sidewalks because they can't drive on Rodeo Drive, and here I am with the top down on this convertible driving down Rodeo Drive, like, is like a once in a lifetime moment. We'll share a picture of the car on Rodeo Drive. So, anyways, it was like a just whirlwind that, as you know, for whatever reason, I get into these whirlwinds and they can last a long time, you know? So, we brought it back from all the shows, finally got it done, and sure enough, we decided we would take it to auction week that occurs every January in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's like what you see on TV, the
Mhm.
big, Barrett Jackson, Russo Steel, all the big auctions that are televised in many cases. And we interviewed the different companies and we decided to go with Russo and Steel because they were going to make it like their primo, like star of the show car. And they gave us a mirrored turntable at the front of the main. These tents, like, they told me that year that Barrett Jackson spent $1 million just to rent the tent
Wow.
that they used for their main auction. Like, so these tents are like buildings, right?
Yep.
So it's not only sitting on a mirrored turntable, it's also next to this dude who's selling super high-end cigars and um, pipes, and he's got black leather couches, that are facing my car, and sure enough, we we I tell the story so many times, it's crazy, and I was certain we were gonna sell the car. Like, there's no way this car isn't selling. People had called me, it's like, once you can sign a car like this to an auction, you can't sell it. Like, you sign a contract,
Okay.
you're not gonna sell it between when you can sign it and when the auction occurs, because they're gonna spend money advertising it,
Makes
you know?
sense.
So, I queue up all these people to call in and bid on the car when it's on the block, and then I have all these other people walking up that are like, big name people, like,
Mm.
with big collections, like, "Oh, yeah, I'll be there to bid on it," you know?
Wow.
And so we're there on, I think it was, we got there on Tuesday or Wednesday. We start, showing the car, talking to people. I don't remember the name of the guy that owned the high-end tobacco business, but we became kind of like friends. He comes running out of the main auction tent. It's Thursday night, probably about, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something like that. And he's like, get your keys and move your fucking car right now. And I'm like, are you drunk? And because they take your keys because they don't want people moving their cars
Sure.
around. And he's like, no, I'm not drunk. Get your keys and move your car. Put it in your trailer right fucking now. I'm like, what's wrong, man? He's like, there's a tornado warning. And Mike, the director of Russo and Steele, this is again what this guy told me. So I'm not trying to make Mike sound bad or anything, but he told me that the director of the auction said he doesn't think it's going to be hit. We're not going to make an announcement, and we're just going to keep running the show. So sure enough, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting my keys. He's like, you better go try. I'm serious, man. We're about to get hit by a bad storm. And I was like, he's like, go.
This is, again, a time where you can't just have alerts on your phone telling you what's happening, by the way. Just
Yeah.
remember that. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. There was no checking the radar on my phone.
Sure.
And there were no TVs with the
Yeah.
news on or anything
Yeah.
like that. There were no civil defense sirens going off because of a tornado. And so I go down, I have to run all the way down to where they have this little hut where they keep the security with the keys and this and that. And I tell the guy through the window, like, Tucker keys, need them now. He's like, I can't give you your keys. I'm like, are you aware of a storm that's inbound? And he was like, no. I was like, well, you are now. And I need my keys now. And he's like, you understand if I give you your keys, there's a good chance I'll be fired. I'm not going to give you your keys. Like, if you want to go bring Mike or someone to tell me to give you your keys, then we can talk. And I was like, I don't think you understand. I'm going to get my keys if I have to come in there and physically take them because that car is my life. And he's like, dude, I can't give you your keys. So I like literally start to walk around. I'm going to go in there and take my keys. And from behind the auction site comes the emergency crews to do a forced evacuation. So then I'm running all the way back up because I'm like, I'm at least going to roll up the windows because all the windows down. And like, I finally get the last window rolled up and I get yanked away from the car by a firefighter or a paramedic. And I'm not even 50 feet away from the car when the roof of the tent rips off
My
in the wind.
God. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It rips off and flies out into the highway. Like these tent, like I said, they're massive tents. They're
This
like
is something
1,000.
out of a movie.
Yeah.
It's
Like
crazy.
it, and of course the storm's hitting at the same time. It starts raining. The people are freaking out.
They're
Like,
freaking out for their lives. You're freaking out for the car.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I get in the truck that it's a dually, the big truck with the big enclosed trailer. And then like, God, please either don't touch this car or take it to heaven.
You're
Just,
like, take me, not the car.
I was like, please just, again, just take it to heaven because we had a lot of insurance on it. And that's what insurance is for,
Mhm.
either take it to heaven or don't hurt it. And sure enough, it didn't go to heaven and it was hurt.
Yeah, God works in very, very, very mysterious ways.
Yes. Yes. So, and then to top it all off, they declared the auction a disaster area. And so they wouldn't let us back on the auction site. Like, so the storm moved through. That was Thursday night. Friday, we had to basically just wait in our hotels for permission to be able to go see
Wow.
what all is happening. So I called the consignment director. I'm like, hey, man, I sure hope that you guys have put a cover on my car. And he's like, I will ensure it's done if it hasn't already been done. And I'm like, so you don't know that if my car's been covered? And he's like, honestly, I don't, man. This has been just totally crazy. And I'm like, okay, please let me know when you definitely can confirm that my car is at least covered because sure enough, hail ends up coming
Oh,
through
wow.
and another wave
Oh my God.
of storm. And even then you're not protected from hail with a cover on a car.
Mhm.
So, but at least it's better than nothing. So they finally get the site safe enough to let people back in. And we're talking about a multi-million-dollar car. So when I say $70,000 worth of damage, in the grand scheme of things, that's a very small percentage of the total value of the car on the one hand. On the other hand, $70,000 worth of work is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's how much work it needed.
Oh my gosh.
because the cover that was put on the car, we had tens of thousands of dollars just in the chrome pieces, getting them replated on the car. They put an indoor car cover on this car and it scuffed up the chrome, almost like
Wow.
all the chrome around the car. We finally get to go back in to the auction site, and sure enough, they are actively trying to convince everyone to go ahead and run their cars, like continue the auction. There are cars there that are true roadsters, like kind of like that Ford I described earlier.
Hmm.
There's no convertible top at all. So they just got rained on. The
Wow.
roof of the tent is gone, and they just got rained like
Oh my gosh.
and so they're like, "Yeah, we want you to go ahead and run your cars. Like we're going to go ahead and finish this auction."
Mm.
And I'm like, "No way. I'm not like, are you kidding me?" And they're like, "Just think about it because people they saw what you did, you and your team did. You took this car from like needing 5,000 hours worth of work to pristine.
Yeah.
So you might want to consider running it." So of course I thought about it, or we thought about it, and we decided we'd work on the car. There was a big dent in the left front fender. We worked on it, and we actually got a local company to mix up the paint because we had the paint code with us. Got some touch up paint, touched it up, and it was actually pretty presentable. We have a picture we'll share. You can't really see any damage on the car of it on the auction block, but to continue the story of craziness, they moved this car, the Tucker, into the primary auction tent with like ropes around it, everything that, giving it the presidential treatment that it deserved, that it should have gotten from the beginning
Mm.
because the main tent, the roof didn't blow off.
Wow.
But anyway, so at these auctions, you want to run, if you've got a multi-million dollar car, you want to run it along like with other cars that are very high value,
Mm.
right? So we did the order based on, the auction not running on Friday like it was
Hmm.
supposed to. They put this car back to back with like a really high-end Ferrari and then another really high-end car because you want these bidders go from auction to auction
Mm-hmm.
during auction
Yeah.
week, or they're watching them on their TV and calling in with offers. So I'm standing there like 30 minutes before the car's supposed to be on the block, and I'm like, they haven't even asked to put this thing in line yet. And I go and I find some employee of the auction, and I'm like, "Doesn't this car need to be, like, behind that Ferrari over there?" And he's like, "Oh, shit." And I'm like,
Oh my god.
"So you just, like, almost killed me. You almost destroyed my car, and now there's no way with all the cars, there was no in the way and the rate at which they were running across the block,
Mm.
there's no way it was gonna run when it needed to run." So, yeah, it didn't run at the right time. Mike, the director, was of course, frazzled about everything that was going on. The plan was for when it got on the block for him to pitch the car to the
Wow.
public.
Do you think that it probably would have sold then
If
if it had run?
in the right order,
Hmm.
well, I know for a fact that there were bidders we lost because it didn't run. They assumed that I pulled it. Like I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm not going to risk it. I don't want a low no sale hammer price, or not hammer price as in sold, but a no sale, high bid." They just assumed that I was like, "I'm not going to risk it." And then the story gets worse.
Really?
So,
Because right now we're talking about the New York Times that news that is not that great. We're talking about the first seller that fell apart. We're talking about obviously the tornado that destroyed a car in a way, and then you losing the opportunity to sell it. So that's four things, and the story keeps getting worse, huh?
yeah. And then, of course, the little cherry on top or powdered sugar on top of the sundae, whatever you wanna call it, the haters just
Of course.
nonstop.
Yeah.
It's almost like the haters had, like, seeded the clouds to create the storm,
Yeah.
like
And once again, while you're trying to save your business.
yeah.
Got it.
So, sure enough, it finally gets up on the block, and it's a spectacle. This is like, imagine the Coliseum. Imagine it being full. This is like game time. This is not just game time. This is the end of the 4th quarter. This is where you either
Mm.
make it or break it. You win or lose. Like,
Yeah.
everything is on the line. And again, Mike was gonna be talking about the car. I had the impression he was gonna be telling the story of the car, and, like, because at these auctions, they pump stuff up. They're like,
Sure.
"1 of 1, factory experimental car number 57, 0 real original miles. There's a few test miles that Justin Cole here put on it to make sure it's safe to drive. All the components work. Power top's functional, blah, blah, blah." They, like, really do a good job of presenting them normally. And he's like, "I can't think of a better guy to talk to you about this car than Justin Cole." And it's just like something, again, out of a movie. all these people staring at you, and it's like all of a sudden everything goes quiet. It's like, and thank God I told the story so many times that I just rattle off. I do basically what I expected him to do. And then the auctioneer goes nuts. He's like, give me 500,000, 500, 666, blah, blah, blah. He's getting good bids. And of course, they're trying to talk me into eliminating the reserve to see how high it'll just go. And I'm like, no way. Because if you hammer this thing sold for way less than it's worth,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
can't do that. Meanwhile, my phone is blowing up in my pocket. And they're even back then they would simulcast these auctions either on TV or on the internet. And I'm like, why in the world? It's like my phone was vibrating like from probably 5 minutes before it went on the block till like 5 minutes after it went
Well,
on the block. And of course, I wasn't even thinking about answering the phone because I've got all these people, you know, talking to me, trying to, like I said, convince me
mhm.
to eliminate the reserve price and this and that, and like present on the car. And so, sure enough, it bids up to $1.4 million, which is below the reserve price. I don't accept it. I don't pull the reserve. It no sales. And then like I said, 5 minutes after, my phone's still going crazy. So finally, of course, I'm like let down like crazy.
Right.
Because normally they'll be like, I got 1.5 million on the phone. And then the auctioneer will be like pointing at people who had bid it in the crowd.
Mm,
Are you going to beat
mhm.
1.5 on the phone? Not once
Wow.
did I
Why?
hear because their phones were down.
Oh my god.
Typically, if something like that happens, they'll let people know in advance, like, hey, we're not going to be able to take phone bids. The protocol for that is we want to call ahead on especially these high dollar
Mm,
cars and get your max bid so we can proxy bid for you, is what they call
mhm.
it. So, of course, the first phone call I answer is someone who's like, dude, you told me that if I called when this car was on the block, I could bid on it.
Ugh.
And I was like, I'm sorry, sir, I got to call you back. And so I go and I find the managers, this auction. I'm like, tell me that the phones were working when my car was on the block, please. And they were like, unfortunately, I'm sorry they weren't. But we've got a list of people who are interested. We're going to call them and we're going to try to put a deal together. So it didn't sell at the auction. And as far as like the order of all this stuff goes, I'm about to talk about people who committed to buy the car who then died after committing to buy the car before they could buy the car. I'm not sure exactly when like they died, and like some of them were probably before this occurred too. So we had the guy in that we met in Pennsylvania who couldn't complete the deal because his real estate transaction didn't produce. It didn't even close. But in addition, we have the Prince of Abu Dhabi. Not only is he interested in buying the car, he has me fly out to Palm Springs, California, where he has a small portion of his collection. He has cars all over the world. At least that's what I was told by his agent. They fly me out to California. It was like landing in heaven because it was like wintertime and or fall or winter, one of the two in Madison. And the Palm Springs Airport is like on the side of a mountain, and it's like perfect weather. I fly in, land in heaven, go, and he has me write appraisals to restore not one, not two, not 10, but the goal was for us to restore 100
Well,
cars for him,
wow.
which was just still a small percentage of his collection, right? $75,000 per restoration, plus a multi-million dollar deal on the car, $7.5 million in restoration, plus the car, right? So
Wow.
another situation where you're set. Like,
Forever.
yeah,
For
pretty
a very
much.
long time, yes.
Yeah. You've got
Yeah.
everything you need to succeed because our goal with Benchmark Classics was to go down the center of the United States, open a location in Kansas, one in Dallas, and then franchise east and west. So we get the deal, we agree to terms with the prince. His team is supposed to be sending us all the paperwork for everything. And it was that weekend I went out. I had like 10,000 bucks left, and I went out and put that $10,000 as a down payment on my 2010 Stage 3 Roush Mustang, which I It's a story I'll have to tell in another episode. I had a Mustang that I've touched on in episode 0 and in other content that ended up getting totaled. So I waited from the late '90s until 2010 basically to replace it. And I thought, we had this massive contract for restorations. We had the Tucker sold. So it's time to give myself a treat because I'd been working at Benchmark for next to no pay. There wasn't any extra money to pay me,
Yeah.
so I was a general manager that was working for pennies on the dollar of what you would have to pay a general manager to do what I did. I mean, in the car business now, you pay a GM 3, 4, 500, $600,000 to commit the amount of time that I was committing. And so I'm sitting at my kitchen table on, I think it was like a Tuesday morning, and the Prince's team calls. His rep that I was dealing with called, and he was like, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm actually eating breakfast." And he says, "Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Prince has gone missing." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." Because this isn't just a prince. This is the Prince of Abu Dhabi, who also happens to be the head of one of the largest wealth funds in the world. This guy was not just a prince. I mean, he obviously wasn't self-made, but he made a name for himself, like in business.
Mm.
They don't go missing. Like they have entire like
Yeah.
armies of people to protect them. So I
Yeah.
was like, this has got to be some sort of a joke. I'm like looking at the caller ID, like
Yeah.
eventually I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And he was like, "No, sir, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but the prince was over Morocco learning how to fly his new glider with an instructor. They went down, and when they went down, they went into a lake, and our team can't find him or the plane or his instructor. But we're not giving up." So sure enough, I go in and I turn on the freaking news. I end the call like, "Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me." I turn on the news and it's on literally on the news. Like, Prince of Abu Dhabi in glider crash, looking for plane, looking for
Mm.
prince, blah, blah, blah. Well, not too long thereafter, they found the instructor alive, but the prince was dead. Another person or situation involving this car that dies or something crazy happens,
And again,
right?
that this can be a part of a movie, big
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So, not too long thereafter or before, like I said, I don't remember the exact order of all this because it's just so crazy, but one of the gentlemen who was on our team, our technicians, injured himself, I think, while moving one of the bigger parts for the car, had to have surgery, and the surgeons nicked a nerve. I was told that they nicked a nerve. Something happened in the surgery where he was in constant pain almost all the time,
Well,
and he had to take so much oxycodone or whatever to numb the pain that he ended up eventually accidentally killing himself.
wow.
Accidental overdose, more
Mm.
specifically. So he passed. John O'Quinn, he is a relatively famous attorney from Texas who had a $100 million car collection that included a Tucker sedan. He committed to buy the car and died also
My God.
in a freak car accident. So, and then the final person who died, who was associated with the car that I know of, was a European businessman. I didn't know much about him. It was again through an agent, but he was on his way to the United States in a private jet and had some sort of a medical emergency and died on the plane.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So how
yeah,
many people is this now?
4 that I know of. So, yeah, it was literally unbelievable. And then to come full circle to the indirect hit from a tornado on the auction site, we're pissed, disappointed, borderline depressed, and we get back to the dealership with this car that's damaged. And first thing on Monday morning, we get a call from the bank that had made us sit on all these cars, that they weren't helping us very much at all. They inform us that they're calling our loans.
Mm.
They're demanding we pay them in full immediately. because the car had been damaged.
Well,
And I don't remember my exact words, but they were something along the lines of, "Come get your fucking cars and get them off my property, and good luck fixing this Tucker, and good luck selling it." And I don't think they expected that because I think they were, hindsight being 2020, they were attempting to, like, really put me in my place with a stronger contract and control me even more than they already were, because
mhm,
they were pissed that I got an attorney
mhm,
involved, and they were pissed that I traded for this car. They were pissed that it was damaged. They were pissed that it didn't sell. So, they ended up calling back and they said, "Okay, we will let you keep this car. We will let you fix it. We will let you sell it, but you do have to sign a new round of docs, and they're going to indicate that you're gonna come to us with any offer you get on the car." And of course, I'm, like, thinking, I have no interest in continuing to do business with these people on the one hand, and then on the other hand, I'm like, but if I don't, then I'm always gonna wonder what would have happened if I finished the car and found a new home for it.
mm,
So, we went ahead and signed the new docs. We did the $70,000 worth of work that it needed to get it back to the condition it was in when we took it out to the show, and it was like, I don't know, 4:45 or so on a Saturday afternoon or evening, and the phone rings, right before we're about to close down, and this really, like, I'm not gonna lie, John is his first name. He has a voice that kind of sounds godly, and he's real cool, calm, collected, and, "I'm calling about your Tucker Convertible." Like, "Oh, yes, sir. What can I tell you about it?" "Well, I've been following the car for a long time. I've read pretty much every article that's been written about it. I'm so sorry that you went through what you went through at, Scottsdale, and, I know people who have seen the car in person, so I'm very comfortable with it." One thing led to another. We're talking for, like, at least, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half. I'm like, "Wow," I'm like, I've sold so many cars at this point. I'm like, "This guy's gonna buy this car." Like, he's gonna buy this car, and he might even do it without coming to see it himself. Like, I could feel it. And so he does commit to buy the car, and I'm like, "Wire transfer, cashier's check?" He said, "Well, I've actually got something that I wanna give you for this car that on paper is gonna be even more valuable than the car." And I'm like, "Sir, I wish you would have let me know, like, when I answered the phone, when we were about to close, that you didn't wanna pay me in US dollars, because, like, it's one thing if you wanna trade a car in, but I can already tell by the way you're describing this whatever it is that it's probably not a car." And he's like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" He's like, "It's a piece of commercial real estate." And I'm like, "Okay, are you here in the Madison area?" "No." "Okay." Sir, I appreciate it, but I can't." He's like, "Do you at least wanna know, like, more about it?" I'm like, "Not really, because I have to sell this car for cash, and I need to sell it as soon as possible."
my God.
And so he proceeds to go ahead and tell me that it's a mobile home park in Wyoming. And again, we're in the Great Recession because of the real estate industry collapsing, basically, real estate market. And I said, "Sir, I really appreciate the offer, but I've got to go." And he's like, "Do you want my number?" And I was like, almost said no, because it's just another disappointment.
Yeah.
But then it was like a bell went off in my head. I was like, I wonder if this is just a test by the bank to see if I'm going to go to them with this offer or not.
Mhm.
So I write down his name and his number, and like, "Thank you, sir. You have a great weekend." Of course, I had to present the offer to the bank, and the way I presented it was, "Just want to let you know, this guy called on Saturday night. he offered a mobile home park in Wyoming. I just want to let you know that we're not going to take the offer." And they were like, "You're letting us know?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're not going to take a freaking mobile home park in Wyoming and trade for this car." And they're like, "Well, what's the mobile home park worth?" I'm like,
Oh my
"I
gosh.
don't know what it's worth, but we're not doing it. That's crazy. As you know, we need cash." And they're like, "Well, we at least need to explore this. We need to find out what this mobile home park is worth." So they make us spend like 3,500 bucks on an appraisal of this mobile home park, and sure enough, it appraises at an amount that's greater than the value of the Tucker Convertible.
Wow.
And I was like, "Okay, so now what?" And they're like, "So now you're gonna go out and you're gonna apply for loans using the mobile home park as collateral. And then once you get the loan, you're gonna pay us off. And then
What?
you're gonna pay off the loan on the mobile home park." And I was like, "Absolutely not. You've lost your minds." Like, and they were like, "You do recall signing the new set of loan docs, correct?" And I'm like, "Yeah, and I'm gonna talk to my attorney and call you back." Sure enough, they forced us to do that. But no banks wanted to loan money, even though it was a valuable piece of property. Back then, with everything going on with the real estate market, no one wanted to loan us money. The lenders were just not interested. So we thought we had put that in the rear view, and they're basically demanding us to talk to loan sharks
Mm.
to
Wow.
see how much money a loan shark would loan us on this multi-million dollar piece of property. And I told John years ago that I wasn't gonna disclose the specific terms of our transaction, but I don't think he would mind me saying that from this multi-million dollar car, we get a multi-million dollar piece of property. And on that multi-million dollar piece of property, this loan shark is willing to loan us a relatively small portion of its value. We'll just say 750,000 bucks,
Mm.
of which 250,000 they're keeping because they want to ensure that the infrastructure for this mobile home park, the electrical, the plumbing, that kind of stuff is upgraded to increase the value of the asset in case we default on the loan.
Oh my god.
So I have to fly out to Wyoming to go to a real estate closing to sell the only Tucker convertible in the world.
Wow.
It was like, again, something out of a movie. And so the funds, the 500,000 was wired into our account either that afternoon or the next morning, next business day. Our bank sucked that money out of our account immediately and called
Wow.
our notes again. And what remained due, because in that time we had eventually sold all the rest of the cars. So what remained was the delta that they created by forcing us to hold on to the inventory that they wouldn't let us sell. So they create I think it was like $325,000 deficit. And because they made us hold on to these cars when the market was falling, and they said, "Yeah, we need you to pay this money immediately." And they knew we didn't have it.
Right.
And then they're like, "Well, we'll give you 6 months." And I'm sure most of the listeners, viewers, anyone else won't be surprised by the decision that was made. And that was that it wasn't possible to do what they were demanding. We called our attorney, the same attorney that was referred to us by our general counsel, and he was like, "You're gonna have to go ahead and pull that trigger
Oh my
and file
gosh.
for bankruptcy." So, with all that being said, it didn't kill us. We continued to operate. We went through a bankruptcy and continued to operate for a year. And it was the lingering Great Recession conditions just made it like, when considering, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal or anything like that, but when considering my skill set and my team's skill set and the lack of work that we had in the shop and our lack of ability to buy enough inventory to continue to operate at a level that would produce enough income for everyone to make the kind of money that they were worth, it was just literally one of the only points in my life that I was forced to give up. Like, and like I had to make that decision. But I didn't go down without a fight. I got a job back down here in Dallas working for the big boys and moved down here with the goal to send money back up there to because it was like we went from netting a lot of money every month to losing a lot of money every month, and we fought and fought and fought, and we were teetering, on consistent profitability. But when you shut down a business, you really need to plan it at least a couple months in advance. So we went ahead and I did everything I could to make us enough money to keep it alive. But sure enough, I get down here and the individuals that I worked for in the big box world here, I guess the most professional way to put it is I did not make nearly as much money as I expected to. And as a result, on Halloween of 2011, uh, we had to shut Benchmark Classics down. And going hand in hand with that ends up with this Tucker, right? And we're to this day we're friends.
Yeah.
He might even be joining us for an episode.
Yeah.
He's a very private guy. Uh, we won't be disclosing his last name, but anyways, he
Guys,
told me,
you guys talk quite frequently, right?
"Oh yeah, yeah, I actually need to call him back today." But he's like, "Justin, two things. Number one, because we continued to talk for that year, and he's one of the reasons we're gonna have him on the show is that the guy drove into small town Wyoming with two babies in a like camper topper truck. The wife had left them. He had next to no money, and he went from that to flipping cars, to flipping mobile homes, to flipping mobile home parks, to flipping stocks and bonds. This guy is so good with money that he's had individual transactions, like stocks and options transactions where he made like 8 figures in a period of weeks. Like, he's like I mentioned godly voice.
Mm.
He's almost like a prophet, like,
Mm.
the way that he can predict things. So, going hand in hand with that, he was like, "Hey, Justin, number 2, I'm gonna be reaching out to you. I'm gonna hold on to this car for about 10 years, and then I'm gonna reach back out to you, and we'll probably sell it again." So, here we are, and the car is on our website. It's been, on our website for a while now, and we've even experimented with different prices because John's not the type of guy that has to sell the car. But based on everything that's occurred, it's highly likely that with this latest round of content that's being produced about the car, and the fact that the car stands on its own, and the fact that we're taking the time to tell my side of the story, who knows? Maybe it will find a new home.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, that new home might be with us someday.
Imagine.
Yeah, because it's definitely it holds a special place in my heart. It's obviously bittersweet because it was like a redheaded stepchild that I had to try to keep from killing too many people, for over a year. I guess kind of cherry on top way to end it is that John buys the car, and obviously you have to be wealthy to spend millions of dollars on a mobile home park, and he had multiple mobile home parks. But with that being said, when he bought the Tucker convertible, he was doing well, but not like phenomenally well. And instead of killing him or people he knows or people who work on the car, it's been more like a good luck charm for him.
Yeah.
So the Tucker curse has been effectively eliminated and reversed
Yeah.
by John. So for anyone who joins us for this episode and they're considering adding something like this to their collection, don't be worried about the curse.
Yeah, definitely. And just so you guys know, he always prays with and for you, even on the call. So I think that's something beautiful. And to tie it all together, Again, I do really believe that he made this car a lucky car, and whoever keeps it or brings it on their collection is gonna impact them in a very positive way.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone who joins us for that episode will see that it's gonna be a unique episode because due to his level of privacy, he doesn't wanna join us via video, so we'll probably just have a picture of him that might be modified. But anyway, he is very spiritual, very he's a devout Christian,
Mhm,
and, um, I guess kind of in closing, I'll mention that one of the turning points in his life was shortly after he began volunteering to go see old people in an old folks home to take Sunday school and church to them because they were in a kinda low income home, and it required volunteers to go out and do Sunday school and church with them, and he volunteered to start doing that, and he didn't do it just like No Surrender. We're not doing this because we expect something in return for all this time we're investing in it. He did it because he has a good heart and he genuinely wanted to help these people. But sure enough, like, he went from, like I said, nothing to obviously a multimillionaire, and he also bought all these mobile home parks with almost no money down.
mm,
So typically, you have to have 10% or
yeah,
20% down. He borrowed the money to put down.
mm,
Like, borrowed money to borrow money.
mm,
Like, I honestly have never met anyone else who not only has done that once, but over and over and used it to accumulate this insane amount of wealth.
wow,
So he's literally just like the car, he's like a unicorn.
yeah, a legend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that is the story of the Tucker Convertible.
Oh my gosh, I really do hope that it becomes a movie or a series or something, but I know you were very hesitant of doing this, and I thank you for putting your story out there for everybody who wonders what is going on with that car.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure, and hopefully people will realize that I mean, check me out on LinkedIn, check out my businesses, like, I have no time to even begin to try to engage in elaborate hoaxes,
Right.
I've never had time for that, so I have noticed lately with that post that we've touched on a couple times in this podcast that the support for us in the car has gotten a lot stronger over the years. I mean, it was literally like, the Gestapo in the past, like, they would, like, personally attack people,
Mm,
like, not physically, but personally, like,
sure.
if you stood up for us in these group discussions online, it was like you were
Mm,
a target just like we were a target,
mhm.
and now you consider what this car is, it stands on its own. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's experimental car number 57. It probably at this point only has a dozen miles on it.
Yep.
It's beautiful, and I'm not, like, gonna lie, Tuckers are not the best looking cars to begin with. Like, they're really cool and unique, and they were called torpedoes because if you look at them from the top down, they
Mm,
look like a torpedo, like a kind of an ovular torpedo shape. They have all this cool technology and stuff, but I was never the type to be like, "Yeah, I wanna have a Tucker in my collection."
mm,
On the flip side, if you look at a two-door convertible, it's a much better looking car. So it's the best looking car, the best looking Tucker. It's probably the lowest mileage. It's in the most desirable color combination.
Can you just briefly touch on that, please?
Yes,
Why
well
how did you, like, come up with the color combo?
we have for the people that are watching, we have, like, one of our early sketches of, like, we were gonna do a two-tone silver and blue paint job just to be kinda different and make it look like because prototypes are often painted in unique ways. The blue specifically is called waltz blue, and it's called waltz blue because Preston and his wife Vera were at a dance, a waltz one night, and her dress was this color of the car. This was like a sky blue metallic,
Mm,
and he told her that he really, really liked the color. She said she did too, and he said, "Well, I'm gonna call it waltz blue, and I'm gonna put it on my cars." So waltz blue is the color we went with for the car, and ironically, in the late model side of the business now, blue is not necessarily the most popular color, but in Tuckers, waltz blue is, in my opinion, the most
yeah,
desirable.
iconic.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. check out tuckerconvertible.com, as we put a website together many years ago, maybe 10 years ago or something like that, where again, you have everything that you need to know about the Tucker.
Yeah. Yep. Tucker Convertible. Obviously, no surrender is where we're posting this content. And stay tuned because usually when content is posted about this car, there's a lot of action. There's a couple of videos on YouTube already about it that have a combined total of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of views. So we're ready to answer any questions that people have. It might take a little while because we're so busy, but yeah, this car deserves to be respected for what it is, and it's time that we squash the nonsense. We'll never get rid of the haters, but, like, at least the world knows my version of the story, which is what I genuinely believe to be true, and I never would have bought the car and intentionally tried to defraud anybody. It's not worth my time, you
Yeah,
know?
and you're
So,
not that type of person, and I mean, if you have listened to him on all the episodes that we've done before, which we didn't necessarily think that we're gonna do one for the Talker until just recently, but you'll tell what kinda guy Justin is and who he associates with, with which is, like, all the guests that we have had on the podcast. So, yeah,
yeah, we're here to do good things, and we hope that the at least some of the naysayers will realize that I'm not some evil villain that, again, it's those words, elaborate hoax. That's not my MO.
for sure.
So, yeah, we appreciate everyone joining us, and, until next time,
Until next time.
thank you very much.